There you are in Reno.
Sweet.
Welcome
All right.
to
Yes, I'm in Reno.
over 50, starting over from Reno, Nevada with I'm Barry Edwards. I almost said
And I'm Merle Garrison. A little echoey over here, I think.
a little
But
bit.
best I
It's
could do.
not bad. Yeah.
All right.
Dude, you had to get away. You had to explore. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah. So, here's the deal is that, well, there's a couple of things that are going on right now. First off is that Spoke, the company that I work for, is the leader at Spoke, or the leadership at Spoke, had decided in order to keep everybody employed through COVID, that they would implement this furlough system. So the way that it works is that everyone has to take a certain amount of time off every quarter, and it's unpaid. So this quarter it was a week. Last quarter it was a week. The quarter before that it was 2 weeks, and the same with the quarter before that. But what that did was it kept it so that everybody got to keep their jobs. Nobody lost employment during COVID, and I think it was brilliant. It it had the effect of causing a lot of people to go on furlough at the same time, though. Sometimes that was a problem, but yeah. I think the team pretty much figured it out. So this week was my furlough for second quarter. And I don't have to take one next quarter. We're done with that as we're getting out of this whole COVID-19, stuff that we've been in.
Isn't that
and so this week I took my week off Monday through Friday, so last day of my furlough. And Anne-Marie and I decided that, hey, let's get out, let's explore. Let's go on a nice drive. And while we're at it, let's see if there's a town out there that we'd like to leave and move to. And we've talked about this several times on the show before. The things that are happening in California right now are absolutely insane.
Everybody in the country is aware of that.
Yeah. It's interesting because even the very liberal media, the LA Times, is going after him here today about how he has not given up his executive emergency powers.
Yeah.
Yes. And they're killing the state. Here's something where it says that the Golden State has lost billions of dollars now over COVID because people are leaving the state in droves.
Yeah.
It's a mess. They're not enforcing the law. Homeless situation out of control. Prices skyrocketing, housing costs are continuing to skyrocket. I don't know how anybody can live there. So anyway,
it's a poster child for how to do everything wrong. And California is always California has always propped itself up as being, we're the leader of the country. What we do first, the country then follows. Look at that clown show. And they wanted to also do away with what do you call that, voting, so that they can have the popular vote. What's the word? So that divides up voting equally. Why can't I think of that? You never help me out with this stuff.
I'm good at that.
Yes.
I'm not really sure what you're talking about, but it's funny to see you frustrated.
When you vote. Okay, so that New York and California do not run the country. So
yeah. Well, we're talking about the Electoral College.
There you go.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, so of course they would love to be able to get rid of the Electoral College because you're right. They would be in control of everything.
And the entire country would be going down the tubes with California. Yeah.
Well, and really in California, you have a one-party system. The way that the state has operated, you'll go into the ballot box and or into to cast your ballot, and there won't be any choices except for Democrats. It's crazy how they have been able to engineer the state, but it's crashing in a terrible, terrible way. Right now, we have a terrible drought situation where now we're going to be on emergency rations because of that.
You guys go through that, though. It seems like every third year or something,
Well, the funny thing about it, Barry, was that last year they said the drought was over. We're beyond the drought, and then this year it's an emergency situation already.
You guys are going to be on fire by next month. I mean,
Here's
seriously, the
bottom
forest
line.
fires and stuff.
Bottom line is, I see that there's a lot of just mismanagement, just total mismanagement. I have a hard time believing that it's because of a drought that we're having emergency situations with our water. Maybe it is, but I just feel like these guys are very honest, and it's costing everyone in the state dearly.
There's something about California because it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. It really is, up there with Hawaii. And people go there and they get woke, and because they get so full of positivity, really, that they want to share it all. It's kind of like the greatest generation ever, World War II generation, gives birth to baby boomers. We had 20 years of, they come out of these hard times and we hit prosperity for 20 years. And then baby boomers want to give away everything because this is the new utopia. And where does it get you? Right? Immediately, it gets you into a really hard place. And it's like people will talk about, oh, I can't deal with that snow and everything in other places of the country, but you got real people there in those places that deal with some hardship a little bit here, and then they appreciate the better stuff. It's a balance. We need that. And California is this like a perfect example of what goes wrong when you try to create a utopia.
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, it's a dystopia in California, and it should be there should be a textbook written, just like you said, on what not to do to run your state, because California has done all of it. Take Venice Beach for an example. You and I went down there, Barry, and I remember the shock that you had when you saw all of the homeless people lined up on the bicycle trail, just in shanties that they had built. Barry, it's a lot worse now.
I know.
These people are like attacking people that come down there now. So I would never go down there anymore.
That's a shame.
It's dangerous. There's human feces everywhere. There's needles everywhere. These people many people are down there that have mental health issues. They're attacking the tourists that come down there. Venice Beach is completely ruined now. So
let's try to get on format a little bit. Last week we went away. What I wanted, my intent was, and I know that you go ahead with, but so up front, we typically do something of a career or a self-improvement type thing. And you're out there in Reno for all these great purposes, and you got a lot to share. We got a lot of photos that you sent me to share.
Oh, absolutely.
And I wanted just for you to run with that as far as the self-improvement thing, because this is a bunch of positivity. We went kind of right down the whole negative thing there.
Well, the reason I did that is to show why I came out here, because on my vacation, I wanted to find if Reno was a possible contender in a place for us to move to. And so we went on this journey on Monday, which was my birthday, by the way, about a 9-hour drive up here. We took our time. That's why it took 9 hours. It should take about 7 hours. Anyway, it was lovely. We took the scenic route. We drove all of these back California small towns and stuff like that we've never seen before. We just saw the most beautiful sights. It was so great to get away from the hustle bustle of LA and just see all those beautiful sights, all that wide open space and everything, and nature. It just, as I was driving away, it just felt like stress was melting off of me. And it was just wonderful. We got here and we were staying in this little house that Anne Marie was able to pick out on sort of a program like you do. And we are staying in the nicest place. So that's me right there. And there's a picture of me having a beer right there.
Looks like an IPA.
Birthday.
An IPA.
It is. It's a hazy IPA, and which I like. And I had just finished my 9.5-hour drive when I was finally having a beer to celebrate my birthday with Anne Marie.
So nice. So this is
55.
little house that you're staying in, which is gorgeous. I love
It
it.
is. I mean, I'm looking over there at the front porch. I'm standing out there. I love those kind of porches too. And
Mm-hmm.
Anne Marie and I
Yeah.
have been hanging out there. And we've had a great time staying at this little place here. Highly recommend it. Now, this is downtown Reno. And
Yeah.
the interesting look at all the people.
All the
There's
people.
nobody.
Nobody.
There's no
And
one in the
remember,
picture.
most people are listening. So I'm going to go.
Yeah.
You got a lot of photos here. I'm going to go through them kind of quick to give the flavor. But tell us about your
So
impression of Reno.
this whole thing, just cruise
I
through there.
love it.
This whole thing is the town itself. It seems empty. It's so quiet here. I'm
That's
staying
nice.
downtown. It is nice and it's very clean.
What is this
is a bike
place?
shop right here.
That's
It's
a bike shop?
and they serve lattes.
Oh,
And I was like, this is my kind of place. They have the best bicycles in there, and it smells like a bike shop, but it's got great coffee as well. I love that. I think that's awesome.
I do too.
It's just about 2 blocks away from where I'm staying here. Everything's in walking distance. I'm staying in Midtown Reno. It's just nice. It's just very nice. It feels very safe. It's quiet.
Sweet.
You can see, like, you look at there's hardly any traffic. Okay, this is the Truckee River that goes right through town. Very beautiful, scenic. And it's just we saw a lot of beautiful sights. You can just keep going as we walk through this town. This is just walking. That's downtown. And Anne Marie and I hanging out by the Truckee River.
Yeah,
we just had a really nice time.
I think this is Anne Marie's first appearance on the podcast.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I do think okay. So.
Yeah. We went up to
Lake Tahoe
yesterday, and first off, I got to tell you, the drive up there was amazing.
Yeah.
It's about a 50-minute drive, and boom, you're in the most beautiful surroundings. I'm telling you, Barry, I was blown away by this blue jewel down in that's called I forgot the name of it already.
Lake Tahoe.
Lake Tahoe, right?
Now, wasn't this where Scott went a year or two ago?
It is actually,
because I remember he sent me pictures, and what he said was, in the pictures like this one illustrated it. He goes, "You wouldn't believe how absolutely clear the air is." And you could see in the picture, there's absolutely no fuzz haze whatsoever. There's like nothing in that air. It's so pure.
The air was so fresh, Barry, but you can also see in that water, you can see rocks in that water. Those are rocks that are like 30 feet underwater.
Oh my God.
That water is crystal clear. They say you can see, like, the depth of that water at the most depth is about 1,600 feet deep. So This is a very deep lake. Wow. And you can see about 100 feet down, like, clearly.
Is it cold?
It gets to be about 40 degrees in the wintertime, and in the summertime it gets up to 70 degrees.
That's cold. And that's why no one's in that water. That's cold.
It was kind of chilly up there too. It was like 50 degrees that day yesterday. So
it's beautiful.
But Mark Twain, I saw a sign over there where Mark Twain was saying that he went out into the lake on a boat, and because of how clear it is, he had the impression that he was floating on air.
Oh,
it's just that it's an amazing place. Never seen anything like it before.
Wow, I'm liking the whole thought of Reno.
Well, the whole area, you can drive all around the lake. It's about 70 miles. So I'm thinking, I love my Harley. What a beautiful place to ride. And just ride up to this would be sort of my substitute for Pacific Coast Highway if I were to do that. Yeah. But just absolutely great. Skiing right there. It's, unbelievable. And that's that Truckee River right there. That river just is pristine, just beautiful water coming out of the mountains. Mm-hmm. Just wonderful. I have to tell you, on the way, this was the picture you're showing is on the way back from the lake. And Anne Marie was driving through the mountains, and it was so breathtaking. My heart was racing. It was so beautiful. It was just unbelievable.
So when do you come back?
We're leaving today, as a matter of fact. I'll be back home tonight.
Oh, okay. Are you sad to leave? Or are you like,
I am.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going to miss it. I can tell you that on the negative side of Reno, it is extremely dry here. If dry weather irritates your nasal passage at all, this is not the
Oh,
place for
I
you.
would get nosebleeds. Yes.
Yeah, it's like that, and we're at about the same altitude as Denver here
Oh, really?
in Reno, and so
Oh.
you're close to about 5,000 feet, mile high, and I can kind of feel the difference here at a mile high, but I could certainly feel it when I was at Lake Tahoe. Everywhere I walked, I was all,
Yeah.
it's a pretty serious thing. So
Well,
so
what
those are
about Anne
things you would have to
Marie?
get used to.
I remember when you were in Colorado, you said Anne Marie didn't like how dry it was.
Yeah, seeds doesn't seem to be affected by it the same way that I am. So I don't know. These are things we'll have to. I feel like this. We've had a great experience over here. Well, I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like you go home and then you think about it for a couple of days, and if you're still excited about it, maybe that's the place.
That's a good point. I remember that when you checked out Phoenix just a couple months ago or whatever it was, you were excited, really excited about that for about a day. It seemed like to me.
I was excited about it, but
I wouldn't want to live there.
It didn't pull me. It just didn't pull me. The temperatures since we've been here have been barely over 70 degrees. That's interesting too.
Yeah.
Since and I live in the valley and where it's like 120 degrees every day after August 1st. So that's something to think about as well. And here's one other thing. I found out that the population here is only 250,000.
Really?
They call it the biggest little city in America.
Yeah.
And it really there's an international airport here. There's only 250,000 people here.
Wow. Now I got to tell you, it sounds intriguing, but like I said many times, but Nashville is the one that I can't get out of my head. And I never expected that.
Wow. And so many prominent people have recently moved to Nashville. Like that seems to be where everybody's going to.
I hate that. I hate the sound of that. I hate the sound of that.
I don't like that either. Speaking of that, we have met several people from California here. In fact, everyone we've met here they've been from California.
Yeah, I bet.
And they're all, because this place is, people are coming here in droves, apparently. It's caused the property value to rise. But
get it while you can.
Yeah, exactly. And these people that we spoke to, they are overjoyed that they're here. So we talked to one person last night who said that she didn't have the ocean, but at least she could have Lake Tahoe, and she felt pretty good about that. So
you know what, man? I'm sitting here rooting for this. I really hope you make that.
That's pretty cool, Barry.
We'll
see what happens.
Sooner rather than later. Not too far.
I understand.
Not too far from the kids either, which is very
well. It's not. And the hardest part about it is that, of course, the kids live in Los Angeles, and, and I love being near them, and we're gonna be hanging out with them on Sunday, and so but life is interesting and how those things work, and I just believe that all things work together for good. So maybe this is leading towards that.
They're adults. They have their own lives and so on. They're both almost 30, around there at 28 to 30. But would it be a good move for them as well?
Yeah, well, sometimes you got to pave a path for everyone else to follow. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. I would love that. I know
would love that.
Scott and Karen seem to like it up here too. So who knows? Who knows how everything will work?
I love the sound of all of that. Hey, so let's move along. There's a whole lot to talk about. Some frivolous stuff, some super serious stuff. Hey, this is a shocker. Crystal and Sagar, who I always talk about, they had a show called The Rise on the Hill, and they left. They left the Hill. So it took me a week to figure this out because I have been a subscriber and I keep seeing these two new people. The one guy would sub for Crystal kind of regularly. His name's Ryan something. He's super boring. I always read the comments and everybody's like, oh my God, that guy, he's so boring. Anyways, I'm like, what's up? they show up in my feed, a Crystal and Sagar. It's like, whoa, different background. This is over the last week. I start piecing this together. And I've never seen them smile so much. They cannot get the freaking smiles off their faces, different background and everything. I'm like, what's going on? And so I'm piecing it together. Oh, I found the show where they announced everything that I swear to God, they could not get these big, silly smiles off their faces as they announced that they left the Hilton. Remember how I said, she used to be a correspondent for MSNBC. He used to be a commentator on Fox. And they left those respective news media outlets because they get their talking points. And they hated that. And so they had to follow that. Well, they took a step. They got somehow they went into a contract with The Hill, but they still had to follow a certain amount of protocol. And
is that right?
Why they left. They got such a following. They are number 1 on Apple Podcasts.
Really?
1. They're number 3 on Spotify behind Rogan and someone else. So anyways, they're like, well,
that's amazing.
They said we're able to go out on our own because we have a subscription base. It's $10 a month. You get a little bit of extra content, but don't worry if you don't want. You can get all of our pieces parts here on YouTube, which is how I watch them, which is how I'm sure 90% watch them. But so they are free. Well, and their new channel is called Breaking Points. And so they get to talk about whatever they want without, and I didn't know that they had any restrictions. They did such a great independent job as it was. So now it's even better. And I just want to encourage everybody to go subscribe to Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. It's a fantastic show. Fantastic. And you're going to get a moderate liberal and a moderate conservative. They're talking points on things, and I got more to talk about there, but I just wanted to make that announcement for people.
Hey, that's really cool to see that they have liberated themselves
completely
from the dominance of the media empire that's happening. And that's kind of how I see it. It's like escape from the empire. And
yes.
This is news is under attack. That's plain and simple. So I'm glad to hear that happen for them. And hey, it's interesting. I wanted to bring up the other podcast that I do for a second, our Cider Talk. And just an update. IBM TV is no longer. They're not IBM TV anymore. They're called PodTV.tv. And they're reformatting everything, but they did something a little interesting. They made this hard switch from IBM TV.tv to PodTV.tv, and they didn't, redirect the old site to the new site.
So it's all lost.
Everything got lost, and I'm not really plugged in with the leadership at IBM TV.tv, but I do know that there was a thing there between IBM and IBM TV, and there was a history. That's why it's called IBM TV. There's a history of a relationship there that's no longer, and I suspect that there was a legal action of some sort that had caused the hard switch, because that's unusual for that to happen. So my co-host and I, Rex Lee, who's been on the show with us, we decided to retool ourselves. We created a website called cybertalktv.tv that's online now. You can go to it. And we haven't started recording new shows. We're going to start at the end of this month. So sometime next week, we'll start posting new shows, which we will put on podtv.tv. But that's not, of course, we're not going to be owned by podtv.tv. We're independent as well. You just reminded me of that. We talked about Crystal and Sagar. And so we're going to do our own thing. Barry, we had very good success in those first 9 shows that we did. And we're pretty encouraged that this is going to be pretty popular going forward. So we'll keep you updated on that.
Yeah, it's very important, hugely important subject matter.
So, but on that subject, I just saw the Social Dilemma.
You did
Yeah,
finally.
so here at the house that I'm staying at, they had Netflix, and so I'm like, I got to see that now, and so I watched it, and I was, man, Barry, I was blown away by
It's
that.
everything that we talk about. I bet you watched it because you're already so aware of what was in it. But when you saw it for yourself, it's just kind of illuminating, isn't it?
It really is. And I'm reading Josh Hawley's book right now, as I mentioned last
Mm-hmm.
week, and it's really about the tyranny of big tech and
Mm-hmm.
how this all happened. And he's going into a lot of the same things that were talked about in the Social Dilemma, and except for he goes into much more depth. And when I start to think about what these guys are doing, the leaders of these big tech organizations, it's diabolical, Barry.
It
I
is.
mean, this is, in my mind, the greatest criminal act that is happening under our noses, and they're just getting away with it. And
It's
they're using us. We're being used.
we're the
They're
product.
using. Yeah, they're using it. We didn't ask them. We didn't permit them to use us, but they're making billions of dollars off of us and who we are,
You
and
know,
they're manipulating us like we're robots. It's a terrible thing when you look at this. This is
it's
I
horrible.
can't, it's overwhelming when you start to look at all the details. Overwhelming.
And
Everybody
it's
should watch that, by the way.
Yes, and it's also inevitable. I remember like technology is completely addictive to us, which makes me think, and I've said this before, that I think that we are trying very hard to merge with tech, and that is like our butterfly transformation. And it's like that has always been our intent to
Yeah.
try to get back to the one. And I say that I remember when I was a kid, my brother and I we were really young for Christmas one year. We got calculators. Remember the first calculators? It's like, oh my
I
God.
remember it was so cool.
And we were just playing with them all day. Calculators. And then not too long after that, the video game Pong came out. Oh my
Yes.
God, we were enthralled with that. And then
I was
Space
addicted.
Invaders.
Yep. Yeah.
So my point to that is, by the time the internet comes around and social media is developed, well, it's our natural inclination to be thoroughly addicted to this stuff. And in the Social Dilemma, they made the point of that they're not purposefully, there's not like these nefarious activities, inclinations going on in the background. It's just marketing. It's just for advertising and marketing purposes. And it's just so easy because we're addicted to this stuff already. To enhance the addictiveness of it, it's like tobacco companies up in the nicotine back in the day, you know?
This is, and I agree. And then it takes it to another level, like a whole nother level.
Because now
for
it's
instance,
used for nefarious activity.
well, yeah, the tobacco companies. I mean, they could do is put out ads of like the Marlboro Man, and then
Joe
you could
Campbell, the
see,
little kids with the cigarettes or whatever.
yeah. So that was one thing, but now with machine learning and with uh, the AI, these computer technologies know you and I better than you and I know ourselves.
Mhm.
They have figured out through algorithms what we're going to do next. And therefore, they know what images that they can bubble up onto our screen. And they can do this at any time to manipulate us. The tobacco companies had no way of doing this. I'm sure if somebody came to them and said, "Hey, we could do this," they'd pay billions of dollars back then to be able to do this. But when you start to realize the power, I mean, if I'm a company and one of these big tech companies come to me and says, "How would you like to have a list of people that are guaranteed to buy your product?" I mean, we can guarantee it. How can you guarantee it? Well, here's all the data to support it. These people will buy because we know them better than they know themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy talk right there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's almost futuristic. We're in the future now, right?
We're over our heads right now.
And
And
how do you back out of it?
you can't. And that's why I always say that Rex Lee and the work that you do with him on Cyber Talk is of the utmost importance, because he talks about the need for an electronic bill of rights. And oh my God, is that overdue? This snuck up on us. We were never prepared for it. I keep coming to more and more realizations. I said a week or two ago about when we talk about freedom of speech, I'm all in on that. I absolutely, if you look at historically how speech is manipulated and turns into propaganda and what that does to a country. And so the need for free speech, but now I've had this realization of how our free speech has been like our freedom was turned against us at 9/11. It turned on its ear and used against us, and all of a sudden they're hijacking our own planes and turning them into weapons. They're turning our own free speech into a weapon with social media by hijacking it, having millions of their operatives, Russia, China, on there and manipulating what our thought process is and talking points. So I don't know. I am right now, I'm always thinking about this. I went from, yes, should be 100% free speech. Now I'm going, I don't know how you fix this. What?
Well, I mean, free speech is great, but when you have a master manipulator of free speech, that is the free speech isn't the problem. It's the manipulation of
I know.
free speech that's
So how do you clean it up?
I mean, it's these algorithms that they're using in order to manipulate us. I think that's where the secret is these algorithms that they're using are those are the things that are taking advantage of our privacy, of our own personal beings. These algorithms that they don't have feelings. They don't have a moral code to them. All they know is they need to get the job done, and they're going to use all the things they know about us to get those jobs done. I think that's where we need to take a look at and say, are those things really legal to have those? Because that's really
clean that up. You can't
the change that they've made.
You know what I think, and this is what I'm just coming to right now as we're talking about, because you also can't stop the other countries from coming in and trying to manipulate. And they pose as Paul Jones down the street, and start telling you a bunch of inflammatory stuff. You can't stop that either. You know what I think it comes back to is the lost art of education. And our educational system has been completely usurped by this woke thing. And that, boy, I got more in the news every day terrible. Now is talking about how, and we've talked about it recently. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we need to revolutionize our education system. And back to this free speech thing, I think amongst many other things is that we need to teach people that social media is addictive. Like, you know what this is kind of like? This is kind of like what tobacco was like before we realized that it was harmful.
In a way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot
in a way, you're right.
Yeah, so we should be taught that about the dangers of social media and how maybe you shouldn't be allowed to use it until you're 18 years old.
I was just going to go there because
I don't know.
Look at what they've done to kids. Look at the suicide rate with kids today. It's gone up exponentially since the introduction of social media, especially for young girls.
Yeah. And, especially for young girls. And you can see how that they're so susceptible, especially. I mean, my God, I could be crippled by someone saying something bad to me when I was in junior high or even high school. But girls are so much more susceptible to that, about their appearance, about their feelings as we're all going through hormonal changes and things like that. Now, the suicide rate with women or young girls has been through the roof. So that's
has been.
I'm going to come back to, I don't want to lose track of this, that I think that we need, our number one thing that we should concentrate on is revamping, overhauling our educational system.
You know what? That's key, Barry. I agree with that. Anne Marie is all over that as far as the education system goes, and just calling out these things that are happening. She's a warrior as far as that's concerned. But she has actually called to my attention a lot of these terrible things that are happening within the education system. It's coming to a head right now with the parents.
It is. It is.
And you know, Barry, it's almost like this is a blessing that's come out of COVID, because the
Yeah.
parents would have had no idea that these things were happening had they not been able to see the lessons that the kids were having at that school. I mean, that's when all this came out.
Yeah, and look how hard they try to hide the critical race theory from people. They deny it. It's like, no, you can't come in the classroom. I mean,
Terrible. I
yeah.
mean, like you're purposely
Jeez.
trying to indoctrinate our children,
Mm-hmm.
and they're so like brazen about it. Like, oh no, you parents can't come in. I mean, like they're their kids and not our kids any longer. How did that happen?
So the problem with this is it's not like, okay, well, let's turn off this faucet and correct our course. The problem with this is it shows you that we have been being indoctrinated for the last 20 years. So you got
Yep.
these people that are 30 years oldish teaching our kids that are thoroughly brainwashed. And when I say something like that, I know a lot of people just turn off right there. They think I'm talking crazy.
Mm,
No,
mm,
talk to them. Watch these videos of
yep.
people defending their critical race theory. It's crazy.
Yep. It
It's
is
thoroughly
crazy, and
crazy.
it's untrue. It's a lie. What the whole thing is based on, it's a lie, and it's bigotry. That's what it is. We're setting
Extreme.
up people for extreme bigotry. The violence is the outcome. We already know how the story
Mm-hmm.
ends, and but what's more scary to me is it's an example that I saw. Anne Marie actually showed me a video this week where it was a Chinese woman who had come to the United States, who actually gave a testimony before Congress, and she only had about 1 minute. So it was like a rifle fired. It was about critical race theory, and she was saying critical race theory is the same thing that we had in China
Sure.
during the Cultural Revolution in the
Mm-hmm.
60s,
Mm-hmm.
which we saw all these people were killed as a result. And
Mm-hmm.
she said the only difference is you're using race here, they used class over there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same tactics. We were taught to hate one another. We were taught to turn each other in. We were taught that the older generation had caused all of our problems.
Yep.
And she's saying that she's seeing America. She came to America to flee that,
Mm-hmm.
and now she's seeing the exact same tactics being used here, and that is stunning.
You could never see a more clear example of that than that podcast that I shared with you with Jordan
You're
Peterson,
right.
Yeonmi Parks, who came from North Korea, raised there,
Mhm.
complete blank slate, completely uneducated. She goes and gets educated in South Korea, where it's super competitive, the educational system. They are geniuses there. And she comes to America to go to university and goes, what? WTF is going on with your colleges? Do not go to college there. It's complete indoctrination. You're not going to learn anything. And Jordan Peterson was so distraught and disappointed by this. He was a professor up until a few years ago, forever. I mean, teaching in a university was his life's passion. That's what got him famous. And he's like, just a single class. Did you not have a single class or a teacher that was special to you and she was quiet for a while, thought about it. And he asked several, and she said, no, not a single class.
Mm.
Critical
Mm.
race theory, this PC culture permeates everything, every single aspect. She was asked what her pronouns are. She's like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right?
Yeah. And every single thing had something, a race slant to it. And she just could not fathom. Again, she soaked up so much education in South Korea, where it's taken so seriously at this point. Every country goes through phases. Okay. So every time a country goes through a phase like the Scandinavian country, everybody thinks that's a utopia now, because for 20 years, they've gone through a nice boom, just like we did 40 years ago, 50 years ago. We went through a 20-year boom, and then all of a sudden it's like the self-made man that creates offspring and then creates these spoiled kids.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
So anyways, that's enough of that. We got a lot of other things to talk about here.
I wanted to say, just to finish off, we just had the Florida Board of Education bans teaching critical race theory.
I saw that.
I'm so glad,
man.
This is, DeSantis.
DeSantis. Yes, I'm sorry.
De Blasio is the diabolical opposite of DeSantis.
He is. I totally messed that up. No, they love DeSantis in Florida.
Oh, I do too. Yeah. I mean, look what he's done for his people. I mean, I loved how he stood up to the NCAA when it came to them trying to say, hey, we're going to have trans women running in women's sports, and he said no, and they said, we'll take our sports out of your state, and he's okay. To go ahead. I really like that he stood up.
Absolutely, it's common sense
right there. That's what the citizens wanted. That's what he wanted, and it is common sense. So I'm glad to see that people are standing up. Same with this 1619 movement, which is based on a lie. They're trying to indoctrinate our kids into this. But there's this woman, and I don't have the name in front of me, up in New York, she's gone viral, just going after the school board for this kind of stuff.
Yes.
And I'm seeing more. I'm
seeing it every day.
Oh, it's awesome.
It is.
Good job, parents. Protect your kids. That's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. All right, that's what I had.
It has to be our number one concern. Revamping our education.
I agree. And when it comes to the kids, that's the future of the country. And right now, I'm concerned.
We should be concerned.
They're saying that math is inherently systemically racist. And do you know why?
Yeah, because Black people were falling behind in scores because of equity.
No. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the root cause. But the reason they're saying is because you have to come up with an exact answer. And somehow that's racist. I mean, how do you get away with this stuff? I mean,
that's back to that postmodern thing.
These people off of the stage,
Oh, I get so angry thinking about that. But the problem with that is what I said a little bit ago, is the people that are educators now in their 30-ish, they're all indoctrinated. They're fully in this stuff. They wholeheartedly, and they get very emotional about it. And their emotions mean so much more than logic. It trumps all.
Yeah. Emotions is reality.
Because they had safe places. Right. Yeah, when they got triggered. That's another thing that Yenmi Park said about the university is if you get triggered by a professor, you're allowed to leave the class and come back whenever you feel better, which may be the end of the semester. Who knows? Merle, our country's insane. Our country is truly insane.
It just seems to me like that people would snap out of it, and
you would think,
and that they would be able to see this. I gotta say, Barry, since I've been here in Reno, and the people that I've talked to, I see American flags flying everywhere. I see people wearing patriotic colors.
That's horrible.
I saw people.
I would get so triggered by seeing all those American flags.
I know you're being facetious right now.
I am, because I just read an article about that about 2 days ago there's a video of this woke woman talking about being so triggered. I forget where it was, about all these pickup trucks with multiple American flags in them. Seriously.
Oh, I saw that as well. And wasn't that somebody in government that was saying that?
I think so.
They were triggered by all these flags, and it's like
multiple. Some of them had multiple American flags in there.
I think the problem for her. Yeah, I've seen it. The pickup truck with the big flag in the back driving around.
That means Trump,
or more than one. Yeah,
it means
that's
Trump.
Exactly what it is. And it's like, come on, people. Come on, you really. And here's the thing that we're realizing now is that this whole Trump derangement syndrome has put the country in complete danger, in jeopardy.
It has. Yes.
And it's like you gotta keep your eye on the ball. And now we're finding out all these things that, okay, hydroxychloroquine. We
I
knew
know.
that this is a tried and true drug that Trump
You know,
said, hey, this is a thing to go with. And back in March, and then everybody in the science and medical community were like, no, we got to make this illegal now. And they refused to treat patients with this drug that could have saved their lives. I saw a report by a physician at Texas A&M, Dr. McCullough, who said that 80% of the deaths here in this country could have been prevented had they used drugs like hydroxychloroquine immediately to treat
yeah,
these people. And today they've confirmed it. It's a
yeah.
miracle drug for people for recovery from COVID-19. And this was all because Trump endorsed it.
Trumpified. Yeah. Yeah. It's like so many other things. It gets Trumpified and then it triggers people. You know what? Going back to the educational system, and this is with adults. We talked about this before, how weird it is that people our age could all of a sudden unlearn their good upbringing and start acting like children. I think what we need to do is take a page out of the Marxist playbook for about a year and take over all the airwaves and everything and just pump in Sesame Street for a year solid. So we can learn our lessons again about treat people, how you would like to be treated, and how you should take responsibility for your feelings rather, than push this.
I agree. And I think it should be the Sesame Street that we watched when we were kids, not the one that's out there today, because that's wokeified now.
I bet it is. Yeah, I bet it is. Cookie Monster probably talks in Ebonics or something.
No, they're having knife fights now. Nothing to see here. It's normal.
Oh God, it's so true.
Bert going after Oscar the Grouch. Come out of there.
Oh, good. All right, let's. I got a lot of other stuff as well. How about let's just go with some tabloid for a moment.
All right.
Chris Harrison demanded $25 million as part of his exit package from The Bachelor. Now, you and I don't watch that show, but I thought this was very interesting. So if I recall the story correctly, a girl, a bachelorette or somebody on the show did a few years ago these plantation parties. She went to these so-called plantation parties where girls would, and this is a typical, you can see, forget the wokeism for a moment. Girls would like to dress up like Southern belles and go to these parties where they feel like a Southern belle for a day,
right?
Kind of thing.
Right.
Well, of course, that got deemed racist years later. And so they dig up the fact that this girl went to some plantation parties. He defended her in a very innocent way. Like, hey, how about let's not be so judgmental here? And he got canceled. Chris Harrison being the lead guy of the Bachelor. What am I trying to say? The interviewer,
the MC, the host. Yeah.
Yes. And so he's been there for years. Okay. Since the beginning. And so he got canceled, and so the producers did not have his back. They bowed to the cancel culture babies. Okay. As everybody else in Hollywood does, which is like, people, this would have cost you so much less if you would have told them to F off and been done with it. You would do the whole world a favor. So Chris Harrison demanded $25 million from them, or he says, I got 20 years of dirt on you of what went behind the scenes with your producers, with all the people involved with the show, and with the contestants.
He's going to get it.
Paid him.
So I knew he was going to get that money.
He was going to get his $25 million the easy way, meaning this way, or through a book deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yep. You're right. Now he doesn't have to write that book.
Yeah. So anyways, this is the insanity that is going on in our culture now. Hollywood bows to the cancel culture babies every freaking time, and all they got to do is tell them to F off. I mean, they really do.
You know what? That's a pretty wild story right now, and he's just talking about the whole the cancel culture, that the lying that happens as a result. I was watching this movie last night called Greenland. And I hadn't seen it before, never saw it advertised, and I didn't see the whole thing because it got late. But it was about this guy who was trying to save his family. It was sort of an end of the world scenario where this comet was heading towards the Earth, and several pieces of it broke off, and one of the pieces was going to enter the Earth's atmosphere. And so the news media were all like, oh, nothing's going to happen. Everything's going to be fine. There's, dissipate in the ozone layer. And there was this big push all around the world to say that there was no problem. So before this is the beginning of the movie, so I'm not going to give away the plot, but before the first fragment hit the Earth, the main character gets a message on his phone saying, this isn't a test. You and your family have been selected for an evacuation plan. Come to the Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. And he was having a party at his house with all his neighbors, and they were all there to watch the re-entry or the entry of this fragment. Yeah. And he gets this, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do?" Well, the thing hits the Earth, and it's supposed to blow, be gone in the atmosphere, but it actually comes through, hits the Earth, and the guy was outside when it happened. He gets knocked down. It turns out that it was a big lie, and they actually knew that this whole thing. There's going to be a bunch of fragments, and then somehow there's something that's going to destroy the whole world. That's about where I stopped it because I was getting all anxious. It was actually a good movie.
Sounds
but
like
it was nighttime. I didn't want to dream about it. But I go back to this cancel culture
what's it called?
thing. Wait a minute. What was it? It's called Greenland. Greenland.
Did you see it on Netflix?
I pulled it up on HBO Max.
Okay.
And it, like I said, it was really good, but it reminded me of what's happening with the media today and how they seem to be very free to lie to us about things that are actually dangerous. And we're on a slippery slope as far as that goes. And that movie, to me, exemplified the extreme end that could be taken to. And I think we need to, these are things we need to be aware of. And we need to roll that back somehow.
I think there's hope in the fact that, like we talked about, that all these teachers that are coming out against critical race theory, man, I'm telling you, the backlash, the mainstream media, first of all, look at their ratings. Their ratings are going in the tank on a consistent.
They are.
People are waking up to all of this. It can't be fast enough, but it seems to be almost an exponential effect that's happening. So there's some hope in that, because
I agree. It's just so like bad. We talked about the social dilemma.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say the pendulum has to swing so far.
Well, I was just going to say it's sort of the same. It does have to deal with that, because at the end of that movie, the social dilemma, I was surprised that they all had advice on how we could get out of this, and they were all very optimistic. And these are the creators of that terrible thing. And they were optimistic that we could get out of this. When I see the whole fight against critical race theory and the parents that are standing up with the serious backbone, that makes me proud, and it gives me hope as well. So, I feel like this show is a part of that fight as well that we're involved in. And I'm so glad to be on the tip of the spear as far as that's concerned.
Yes. Yes. And there's a couple more things I really want to get to. We're running out of time. So I want to mention, because there's a serious one I want to get to in a second. I just want to mention quick. Did you hear of this? This is just so clever that I thought it was amazing, about this FBI run messaging app. This sting, that a heavy blow against organized crime after criminal kingmakers are tricked into using this messaging app. This app, did you hear it?
No, I haven't.
Oh, they so let me see my notes here. Operation Trojan Shield, which was led by the FBI and involved the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, the European Union, police agency Europol, and and law enforcement agencies in a dozen other countries. And they created this app and said, this is a super encrypted app it's absolutely private. No, and every single person that got on this app was a criminal, and all of them were busted. I mean, hundreds. I could pull up the whole story on it. I'll leave it as always.
I'm so glad to hear that.
It was amazing. I'll leave a link for the whole story. I'm surprised you didn't hear about that one. It was huge.
Probably because I've been in here, I haven't really been plugged into the news, but that is so good to hear that. Hey, speaking of good news like that, did you hear that, remember the ransomware for the Columbia pipeline, and that they actually had to pay the ransom?
Yeah.
I found out this week that they got almost all of it back, and it was because they were somehow able to trace the cryptocurrency,
the so-called untraceable cryptocurrency. Yeah,
that's the thing. So-called
that stock is going to go in the tank now. Yeah, I know.
But that's the thing, is that, these people have been able to get away with this. It reminds me of that time where, and I can't remember the news story, but it came down to, well, we could get into this iPhone and figure out what was on the iPhone, but it's locked, so we need to unlock this, and Apple wouldn't do it.
Yes.
But somehow behind the scenes, we found somebody to do it for us, and it's like, suspicious. Hey, I wanted to say another thing, on sort of a little bit on the lighter side, but another movie that I watched this week, Barry. But let me make sure that you got your news stories in before we go to that.
Okay, I appreciate that. This is the last one, and it's just so important. I wish I would have maybe even led with it. Crystal and Sagar did a report on this. It's like yesterday, and I have a link for it. I strongly suggest everyone watch this, or even maybe better yet, go to their source. The source of this was ProPublica, an independent nonprofit newsroom. And the name of the article is The Secret IRS Files. Trove of never before seen records reveal how the wealthiest avoid income tax. Most years they pay no income tax, and on average, these billionaires only pay 3%. And it is really, it's super important. They have income tax going back a few years on Bezos, Elon Musk, Michael Bloomberg, George Soros, name them, keep going. And it's all the same thing. We all know about Donald Trump's $750 income tax payment of a couple years ago, right? That was, and of course, so now that Trump's involved, everybody should get really triggered by this, but only they can afford, these billionaires can afford this creative accounting that to employ the proper amount of tricks. So they're always borrowing against their own assets. So they always seem to be in debt while they're increasing their assets exponentially. Right. And so they get tax incentives for their company. Okay, this is the thing that I don't think that they made a point of. This is just me making a point of it. There's a huge argument to be made for, and I think it's proper, about companies such as Amazon getting tax credits so that they then are encouraged to stay in, say, New York, where AOC was instrumental in making them leave, where they employ thousands of people who are taxpayers. So I see that, the need for giving tax breaks to things like that. Developments. I mean, you want to gentrify a bad neighborhood. Well, create a beautiful development and give people tax abatements for 10 years. It works. But the end users are at the end, the Jeff Bezos are not paying income tax, like, at all. And that's wrong. That's very wrong. They gave statistics on this that were mind-blowing about, and then the least privileged people, let's say poor of the country, obviously aren't paying either. The middle class has been getting more and more and more hamstrung. And as you try to make your way up to upper middle class, you're screwed. You're screwed.
But I love what you're talking about, Barry. I totally agree with you. Whenever we see politicians talking about let's go after the rich, we talked about this when we talked about the formation of the IRS in the 17th Amendment, and how the whole thing on the IRS was to tax the rich. It was all about how the rich were getting away and they weren't paying their fair share and everything. So we voted for the IRS to fix all of that. And funny thing, the entire tax plan goes after the middle class.
The IRS got fixed.
It doesn't ever change, Barry. It never changes.
I
the
think
middle
there's
class
only
is
one
always
way.
who gets it.
Why doesn't anyone ever talk about there's free tax and fair tax? I think it's
the fair tax.
The fair
tax.
Yeah. There's a couple of misnomers there but the one where there's no taxes whatsoever, only stuff that is purchased. Everything that you purchase is taxed. Buy a helicopter, buy a yacht, buy an airplane. It's taxed accordingly. Why do we not talk about this anymore?
People are talking about it, Barry. Josh Hawley's book is all talking about how the history of how when the tax changed back in the Wilson administration in the 19 teens, it was a change from taxing capital to taxing labor. And what happened was we ended up becoming owned by corporations, by the country, when before anything you worked for, you brought home, that was yours.
Yes.
There was no, I'm going to take 40% of what your income is. That you were a free person. You paid taxes on things that you may buy. Corporations, the government was making most of their money. The federal government was making most of their money before that on tariffs. Companies that were wanting to sell things overseas, companies that were from overseas that were selling to us. That's where the federal government made all of their money before. And now that whole thing has been changed. And if you read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which, by the way, great book, but he makes a very big point in that book that the rich don't pay taxes. And he goes into this, and that's why they're rich. And they figured out that if you invest in assets, and then you're going to pay exactly what you just said, Barry, is that, and here's the good news on that whole thing is that is how America has gotten rich. And that is how even you and I can get rich on making investments and being smart with our money and saving our money and not just spending it when it comes in immediately, like we've been taught, and investing. And then there are principles behind that.
I think you should spend it immediately as you get it, not save it, because when you save it, you get taxed on it. When you reinvest.
I'm talking about investing, right? Saving, and we don't want to just put it under your pillow. We want to, because you lose money that way, right?
Yes.
You always lose money that way. And even putting it in a savings account, you lose. It will not keep up with the CPI. Right. And speaking of CPI, the Consumer Price Index, we just had the highest CPI year-over-year CPI rate that just came in for this year, and it has everything to do with the spending, the overspending. The stimulus was one thing, but now they're adding trillions of dollars on top of the stimulus that they've sent out. And this is causing prices to skyrocket. Look at
inflation,
the gas prices that are happening.
Inflation is starting to spike.
It's a runaway train, and
this
it has
is Biden's
everything to do
America.
with the policies that Biden put together. Exactly. And here we are. So how do you like them so far? I don't like what I'm seeing at all.
I thought he would be 100% harmless since the guy can hardly even conduct a speech.
Just the opposite.
He's the Manchurian candidate.
Absolutely, Barry.
By the way, let's start lightening this up. I think about
I want to talk about the movie.
I want you to. I just want to mention that I just last week or the week before I watched this movie, a documentary about mind control and what the U.S. has been involved in for decades, like the 30s, and throughout the wars and everything. We're still doing it in Guantanamo. Is it Guantanamo?
Guantanamo Bay. Yeah.
Yeah. We're still doing it to those people over there. Electric shock therapy, LSD, making them perform sex acts on each other, and everything you can do to break a person. It's just horrible. But what we've done throughout all of history is, and we still do it. It's disgusting. And what, it's all behind the scenes. It's all covered up. It's all via military and different agencies, CIA, and things like that. I forget what it was, but I want to just hand that over to you. But I wanted to mention it, that don't think that.
What's the name of that?
That's what I don't remember.
I
didn't have it in my notes or anything. I said Biden is the Manchurian Candidate. No, that movie. When I watch this documentary, we have done all of that, breaking a person's psyche down so to the point where you could use trigger words, hypnosis, along with drug therapy and electroshock therapy, so you could have break a person's personality down into multiple personalities and use a trigger word. And they were doing it for secret operations, so that somebody literally could undergo torture and be shut off and not divulge anything, not know what to divulge. But
the scary thing about that movie is how true it is.
Not kidding. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll try to dig that up and share what that movie was. But anyways, you wanted to talk about a movie. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was the Friends reunion.
Oh, right.
It's out there now. Yeah, well, you got to see that. If you liked that show, you got to see the show. You got to see it. It was really fun. I thought it was going to be like an actual, maybe more like a movie. Like, remember when the Bradys came back and they did like and it was
Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, right. I thought it was going to be like that. I was looking forward to that, but it wasn't that. It was them sort of reliving all the times that they had on the set and the different episodes, and then they showed a bunch of clips from the episodes, and they talked about the things that were happening behind the scenes and everything. And I got to tell you, first off, I really liked that show. Haven't seen any episodes of it for years and years.
Oh, okay.
And seeing them again, those clips and everything, I laughed so hard. I was laying down on the couch, and sometimes I would put my feet up in the air and just kick my feet. I was like, really? I was laughing so hard. It was so fun. And it just reminded me of just fun times back then when the show was on. And how the name of the show, it's so appropriate, right? And just that there's just something about having good friends and having good times. And I mean, that's where you and I are from, is our friendship, but how special those things are. And the fact is that these 6 people actually became friends through the show, and they really cared about each other and loved each other. And it's just a feel-good documentary. It's going to make you laugh really hard, and it's going to be fun. There was a little bit of a downside of it, and it was that it just seemed like yesterday when it ended, Yeah. And then and here they are. They look great. But, they've aged. It was 17 years ago when that show ended, and they look like it was 17 years ago when the show ended. And it sort of made me feel like, oh my gosh, I thought that, what do I look like?
I know what you mean.
It's like, oh my gosh, time is going by so fast. And they talked about, one of them, Courtney Cox talked about, this is definitely the last time we'll all get together and do a show like this, because we're not going to redo the show again. The show's over.
Yes.
And it's just sort of a sadness about that, like how, and here's the final thing, is that at the end of the series, the last episode, they were all pretty much saying goodbye to each other. Because that's kind of how it goes with friends, right? The whole premise of the show, as I said, was it's that time in your life when your friends are your family. That's what the whole show is based on. And so that's a phase in your life. That's not all of your life, because at the end, Ross and Monica get married and they have kids. And I'm sorry, not Ross, but Chandler and Monica, and Rachel and Ross end up together, and Phoebe's going her, and Joey's going another way. And you have to say goodbye. And stay in touch, and that's a hard thing. That's the worst thing for me.
Yeah.
But it leads to other beautiful
Yeah.
things in life as well. We were talking about moving out of California at first and coming over to Reno possibly, and how that's a big change in life. But that means having to say goodbye to my brother who lives two miles down the street.
He'll follow.
And my
give him a year.
Well, you know what I'm saying is you have to do these hard things sometimes.
I know.
In order for good to come out of it. So sometimes something has to die in order for something new to live.
That's exactly the right way to put it. And psychologists will tell you that is that when you're growing through life, and hopefully you're always growing, but when the big decisions come around, you have to be willing to let a old you die in order for the new you to emerge. That's some really heavy stuff. And
these are the things that get conjured up out of that show. And I thought about all of my best friends, you and Scott, and Anne Marie is one of my best friends, and my mom is my best friend. And I have these best friends but even though we're thousands of miles apart, we're still together.
Ain't that the truth? Hey, with that, we should wrap up this show. I don't know if you have time to do much of an after show, but for now, we should really wrap this one up. So,
yep, got it.
I got an interesting week coming up starting tomorrow. I'll tell you about that next week. And Merle, enjoy Reno. Can't wait for you to come back. Thanks for joining us, everybody. A bunch of you signed up at Over 50 starting over in the last week. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you'll get all these links. And I'm going to tell you what. You got to check out that link that I told you about with this all important stuff about how the wealthy get out of paying their taxes and stuff. It's really interesting. Yeah. What?
I wanted to give a shout out to two people who have been watching the show regularly that I did not know were watching the show. There are two people who used to work for me at Geauga Lake, Jonathan Grosser and Carrie Cavalier, who both told me within the last week over Facebook that they watch our show, and they specifically spoke of you, Barry. I just love you and Barry, and you guys cracked me up, and it just felt so good. And that came out of the blue. I haven't seen either one of them in over 20 years. Wow. And they both pinged me in the last week to tell me how much they love watching our show. So, hey guys, thanks for watching. Stay with us. I love that. Love knowing that you're there.
And love hearing from you. I mean, every time you guys share something with us, whether it's just to say something kind like that, or to maybe challenge us on something, we address it. We talk about it. So yeah, get in touch with us, whether it's from a Facebook feed, a text message from our over50startingover.com. You can leave a note on our blog, or of course our YouTube channel. But man, if I were any of you guys, I would just subscribe to our podcast.
It's so much easier. Just do that.
Do all of them. Do all of them.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a bunch, guys.
Barry, this has been great.
See you guys next week. Thanks.